Hello everyone, I Anish. I welcome you all on the behalf of A.S.S Foundation. Today we are introducing our new batch for BSc students who are preparing for biology and its related fields, and this coaching is at a very reasonable price. We will be having live interaction classes with doubt sessions and DPPs and DPTs too, and we will be providing study material too. So today we are starting with the immunology, and in this video lecture, we will be discussing the basic terms like what immunology is, what is immunity, how our immune system works when for an antigen or an microbe attacks, and what are the immune responses of our body. So let us start with what immunology is. Immunology, this word is derived from the Latin word of immunis, which means exempt, that means free from burden, and the word logi means to study. So, immunology is the science of studying the responses faced by body in response to the foreign challenges. Here, the foreign challenges describes the microbes that try to invade our body, and in this particular field we will be discussing all the positive effects or the negative effects that are caused by these microbes, or how our body reacts, like how they are invading, how they are stopping the microbes that are trying to invade our body, and how particular drugs or vaccines work. Now, the next term is immunity. Immunity is the ability of an organism to resist or fight from invading pathogens, microbes, or any other foreign substances. Immunity can be active or passive, and it can be innate, like that is present by birth, or acquired. Acquired immunity is the type of immunity that we gain from the experiences. The experience is like body when some microbe attacks our body, and the memory we get after having those attacks is that type of immunity. So let us start with active immunity. Active immunity, in this, then body faces the natural exposure to foreign substances. When there is exposure to foreign substances, first of all, body will recognize, it will leads to its recognition, and then the activation of immune responses take place. So active immunity is generally a slow process, and after the recognition and the activation of immune responses, whether the microbe or particular invading organism is stopped or not, but there will be immunological memory. What this immunological memory signifies here is that when the same antigen or same microbe attacks again, the immune response will be fast. So the example of active immunity is like it results when a person is challenged with antigen that stimulates the production of antibody. Now the next type of immunity is passive immunity. In this type of immunity, there is no exposure of antigen. Antibodies are transferred from one organism to other, and it is a quick process. There is no immunological memory. The examples of passive immunity are breastfeeding, gamma globulin, monoclonal antibody production. We will be discussing these examples in the uh, upcoming lectures. See, these are particular desirable and undesirable effects of immunity. In this figure, when particularly our body need to recognize and need to differentiate between self and non-self cells. If our body fails to recognize self and non-self cells, then autoimmunity occurs, and we can exploit this particular term uh, in many cases, like doing grafting. When some organ fails, we try to introduce an organ from another individual who is somehow related, and uh, by giving immunosuppressants, we try to reduce the effects of rejection. So we try to inhibit the adaptive immune responses. We will be looking for adaptive immunity later. So another type is hypersensitivity. Hypersensitivity are the worst systems that lead to the tissue damage. Okay. The next type of immunity is innate immunity. This type of immunity is present by birth. It is less specific and it is the first line of defense. What the line of defense means is these are the particular defenses which protects ourselves from the invading microorganisms. Examples of innate immunity are these are the barriers that protect the host. First of all is the skin, the next one is acidity of stomach or the mucosal layers, lysozymes in the fluids, phagocytic cells, antimicrobial peptides. Examples are interferons and complement system. And the another one is temperature. Like when some pathogen attacks, our body tries to increase the temperature so that they can't uh, try to grow and multiply themselves in our body. So temperature is also a particular effect which stops the invading microorganisms. The next one is adaptive or the acquired immunity. This type is highly specific. Like when particular microbe attacks, there are particular microbial patterns like for gram positive and gram negative bacteria, lipopolysaccharides or LPS. These are particular identification marks the body which recognizes and creates and or produces specific antibodies against those bacteria. There are four characteristic attributes that involve the adaptive immunity. The first one is antigenic specificity. Antibodies can distinguish between two proteins that differ in only one amino acid. See how specific this antigenic specificity is. The next one is diversity. Third one is immunologic memory, and the fourth one is self and known self recognition. Okay, these are the differences between innate and acquired immunity. First one is response time. Uh, Response time in the case of innate immunity is like few hours, but for adaptive or acquired immunity, it take few days. Specificity. Innate immunity is non-specific, while adaptive immunity is highly diverse, and it improves during the course of immune responses. And the next one is response to repeat infection. In innate immunity, there is no specific change. It will be identical to the primary response. While in case of acquired or adaptive immunity, it is much more rapid than the primary response. For this particular point, we will be seeing the graph at the last of this presentation. The major components of innate immunities are barriers, phagocytes, and pattern recognition molecules. The example of pattern recognition molecules are PAMs and the lipopolysaccharides, which I said earlier. While the components of adaptive immunity are lymphocytes, antigen-specific receptors, and antibodies. So now I'll be discussing how immune system works. See, outside the body, there are thousands or hundreds of billions microbes, and to stop them from invading our body, there are barriers. These barriers can be mechanical, chemical, and biological. The most important barrier is our skin, and it has its own pH that resists the microorganisms to invade in our body. When these barriers are somehow destroyed by the invading pathogens, the next barrier that come into play is the innate immune system. And the next one is adaptive immune system, which is highly specific for the microbe that is attacking our body. And somehow if adaptive immune system fails, then the microbes will enter in our body and will cause particular disease that are related to those microorganisms. Now we will be discussing the immune responses. Immune responses can be primary and secondary depending upon the antigen or the microbe uh, invading our body. The main aim of the immune response is to eliminate the prior threat. Memory is the hallmark of adaptive immunity. So the primary response is initiated upon the first exposure to an antigen. Mammary lymphocytes are left behind after antigen is cleared. A second exposure to the same antigen re-establishes the mammary lymphocytes. Reactivation yields faster, more significant, and better response. Mammary is not present in innate immunity as described earlier. See, this graph here depicts how the magnitude of immune response is dependent or different in case of primary and secondary response. In primary response, the magnitude of immune response is somehow low and it takes time. But in case of same repeated exposure to the same antigen, the secondary response is quite fast and the magnitude of immune response is much more higher than the previous one. So this is all about the overview of immunity, immunology, and the immune system. So guys, hurry up. Our batch will be starting from July 1 and there are only limited seats. Thank you. And in the next lecture, we will be discussing the cells and the organs of the immune system. Thank you.